Alright, here we are. 2009 335X drive. Needs a rear wheel bearing. And look at what we find. Does that not look beautiful? Yeah, this car's got less than 100,000 miles on it. Both sides look like this. Very little chance that nut's going to come off at all, considering the socket doesn't fit on it. So I'm going to use some heat, air hammer, cutting torch, and who knows what else to get that nut off there. And in the process, the axle will probably be junk. So I've got all new parts just in case. Worst case scenario is that this whole knuckle or spindle or carrier is going to have to be unbolted from the control arms, and the axle will have to be unbolted from the differential, and I'll have to pull it off as all one big piece and put it all back together. So I have all those parts just in case this job goes to hell quick. So stay tuned. Alright, we've got the brakes disconnected. Another important thing is to make sure you take out the ABS sensor, because you'll ruin that. And that came out like a whole lot of fun. The Allen head screw was pretty corroded. I had to use a impact driver to get it out of there. The sensor itself came out okay out of the hole. So now let's see what happens. Let's start working on this nut and see what kind of trouble we can get into. That's after 10 seconds of hitting with the air hammer, knocking the rust off. You can see we got a whole lot of that nut left. Not even an indication of any hex to put a socket on. So I guess the next step is take the torch out and see if we can melt some of that away. Alright, project update. There's no way I can get that nut off. I've tried my torch. Doesn't have enough balls to cut through a nut that large. It'll take off 8 and 10 millimeter nuts. So I've got the axle disconnected at the differential. Now I'm going to take off the sway bar link and all 5 control arm bolts, the e-brake cable, and let's see if we can see where that is here, and the e-brake parts, and pull off the whole wheel carrier as one unit and replace it with a whole bunch of new parts that I have here. Alright, time to get unconventional. I really don't want to pull that whole carrier off if I don't have to and disconnect all the e-brake crap. So plan C was I cut the hub-centric flange off of the hub. I do have new hubs to put on. And then I took my little angle grinder and cut straight in across here and took a chunk off the nut. That freed it up enough that now I can use the air hammer and the nut's coming off. So I should be able to get the axle, which is now garbage, out of the car, and then I can use my slide hammer to pull the hub off and get the bearing out and put it back together. So I guess that's a little bit of progress. Let's see what happens. Alright, I've got the nut off. I got this kick-ass slide hammer installed on here. Let's see if we can get this hub flange out. I don't really have a way to support the phone while I do this, so I have to come back and see how it worked. Alright, after some major banging, I had to take a dead blow hammer and beat the shit out of the axle to get it to become free from the hub splines. They were pretty much rusted together. So then I got it all apart now, so hopefully that circlip will come out, and hopefully the bearing comes out of the hub, and hopefully this shit show doesn't continue. Alright, we have got the axle out, which involved dropping the exhaust system down. There's 6 nuts and bolts that hold that up, and I've got it supported by the jack in the middle. And I was able to sneak the axle out. It was kind of a trick, but got it. Now we've got the bearing press set up. Got an adapter on the back. The ABS cinch has been pulled out. Now we're gonna start putting some tension on it. You don't want to go too hard because you'll bend the tool. Right here, you'll bend this. If you go too hard, or you'll strip the rod. So you got to get some good tension on it, and then apply a little heat to the outside of the bearing housing, and it should pop itself out. So we'll see how this goes. The bearing came out actually pretty easy. I preloaded the tool, got some good tension on it, put some heat back in this area, maybe a minute's worth with the torch. Gave it a little more, the bearing popped, and then came rest of the way out with the press, no problems. The hole looks very good, nice and clean. So hopefully the new bearing is going to go in nice and easy. I'm going to put the new bearing in the freezer for a little bit, let it get cold, and before I put it in, I'll heat this up again with the torch. And just by creating that little bit of extra space by heating the hub or the carrier and freezing the bearing, will make it slide together so much easier. So we'll come back to that in a minute. Alright, the bearing and snap ring are back in. Got it set up with the new hub, some adapters, and I don't know why this won't stay in focus all the time. And the back side here, see if we can get around. So we've got that set up on the back side. Now we're going to suck the hub in. And then I got another nifty tool to put the axle in, and be able to reassemble the brakes, and should be good done. It's looking good so far. Alright, I want to talk about this new tool I have here. What this allows you to do is pull axle hubs or axle shafts through the splined holes, or allows you to install front wheel bearing hubs onto a spindle. So what you have is a bunch of different sizes. This one happens to be the 27 by 1.5. This will thread onto the axle. And it actually will fit right through the hole with the splines. Once I get it started into the hub, I'll take this part here and thread it into that little nut that I put on, and twist this while I hold this outer part still, and it will actually suck the axle shaft right into the bearing hub. Alright, so we're going to put this axle shaft in. You can see it's in there. The splines are pretty tight, so it's not easy to pull it in. I'm going to thread the proper size nut on the end of the shaft. We're going to go till it bottoms out. Alright, so we're going to thread the extractor on. I'm going to go till it stops. Push the sleeve in. Tighten this nut down till it's snug. Then we'll grab a 15mm and a 24mm. I'm using a ratcheting wrench just to make it faster. I'm going to hold that in place. That's tight. Loosen it up. Put it out. Take the adapter nut off. And there it is, pulled in, nice and tight. Put the nut on, torque the nut properly, connect the axle to the differential, and we're good to go.